Good morning and welcome to another session of GM Tips. This is GM Rick here. I'm going to do another review today, picking a couple adventure paths because I know for GMs you got to ask yourself, do I want to spend the money or not? And so, some of these are a little older, and some of them you may know, some of them you may not know as new beginning GMs. Now, one of the campaigns that I've really looked at, and at first, I'll be honest, I was really opposed to. The idea of technology in a fantasy world really kind of ground my axe. Other than for like a steampunk type of campaign like Eberron for D&D 3.5. So understand I came a long way in my opinions of this adventure path. Now, again, everybody's got their opinions, and some of them said, Rick, you know what, just try it. Hush up and try it and give it a whirl to see if it's worthwhile. And I'll say this, whether it's Pathfinder or D&D 5, these adventure paths can be used for either one, or even D&D 4e. So it definitely can be used for 3.5. So keep that in mind. For those of you that play Dungeons & Dragons, these are easily convertible. Now, to 3.5, they can be converted no problem. To 5.0, you got to take some of the skills and do them a little bit differently, and the challenge ratings and everything else. So just keep that in mind when you're doing these. The great part about this is this setting is, again, in the Innersea world of Golarion. And it is based in Aveston, the northern continent, in a place called Numeria. Numeria is called the land of the fallen stars, and there's a reason for that. Numeria was a Kelid, which is the barbarians' empire. As you can see with the Kelids from seeing her, most of them are swarthy-skinned, dark hair, and deep brown eyes. The realm of the Mammoth Lords, as well as Numeria, are two huge Kelid strongholds where the Kelid people still exist to this day. Now, Aveston used to be full of them, but because of the settling, the moving of the Varishan people and the Shonti barbarians, the conquest of the Taldorans and the Chelish Empire and Druma and some of the other places, these realms are now almost pretty much gone. They're into civilized land. So this is what's left of the barbarian people. Now, back in the early years of time, there was an event that happened that changed the whole world. This was back in negative 5293 AR. So this is post or pre-death of Erodin type of deal, where the Aslanti people were still ruling the world. And the Aboleth, or the Veiled Masters, brought down the Starstone. Well, part of that was Earthfall. And the Kelids survived that despite the fact that this stuff came down and this meteor chunk hit the world. But then in negative 4363, there was a thing called the Reign of Stars. And there was an alien spaceship that was fighting some creatures from behind the dark veil, and their ship was attacked, and the star vessel broke apart in the atmosphere of Golarion. And so it landed in Numeria, hence maybe where Starfinder comes from, is the use of these materials. Well, over time, the barbarians of this realm realized that, gee, this is important stuff. And at first, some of them thought it was taboo, but later on, one of the androids that was part of the Starfall and this ship that survived started what was called the Technic League. And the Technic League, their whole purpose in life in the beginning was compile all these elements of this fallen starship, see if you can get it reworked and re-engineered so that eventually the people who crashed with the ship could leave again. Well, that never happened. The Technic League, of course, got taken over by a lot of greedy and avarice people who wanted to use this technology and covet it for their own. And so now they're a very protectionary group that runs Numenera in the background. And they keep basically the technology from leaving this country, and sometimes by massively death-filled force. So keep that in mind. It gives you, this is a great book to have because it gives you a lot of background into different groups like the Technic League. It gives you things into the different cities that are around the world. And Sovereign's Reach is important because of this. It gives you a lot of plots and perils that are involved that have to do and can be used with both the Iron Gods adventure path as well as other things. It gives you radiation, gravity effects on people, the different Numerian fluids and side effects from taking these out of the starship. What happens if you drink some of these and mix them around? It gives you the different Kellid tribes of Numeria. And there's several massive Kellid tribes that are still around to this day. And of course, it gives you information on the Technic League, which the Technic League is, like I say, a group of technomancers and other type of people who are using these things for their own purpose. Plus, it gives you a lot of the different creatures and critters that are involved in the world and embroiled in there. And some of them will come up in the adventures. It gives you encounter tables for the different sections in Numeria, as well as some different creatures. So some of this stuff is going to be in the Bestiary 4 and 5. So, you know, necessarily having the monsters in here may not be the greatest thing, but I love it because it gives you a history and a background on the area that you're going to be adventuring in this path. Now, the technology guide. Love it. Goes into all the tech in depth, including gives you different skills and feats as well as archetypes. So if you're going to be running characters up in this area, this book becomes a nice add-on to give you that extra information you're going to need as a GM to reward players, to help them to find different tech items and how it will work. Now, most of these are in weathered conditions, so the cool part about them is they can fail, and it can make it really interesting for the party. So let's start the adventure. Where do we begin? Well, we begin the Iron Gods with the fires of creation. You're going to become part of a little area called Torch. And Torch is a city that is involved with this society and the reign of stars and everything that's going on. Now, they give you some good information on that, as well as the android, the ecology of the android in here, which I love that because you're going to be coming into contact with androids throughout this adventure, and a uprisen AI god. Here is Torch. Why is Torch important? Because Torch has one of the engines, the star drive engines from the starship, and it is one of the few places on the world where you can forge adamantine and star metal weapons. So I like this because they finally took adamantine, which has been used in many campaigns all the way back to 3.5, and gave it a real reason of what it is. Everybody says it's a meteor metal or a star metal. Yes, it is. But how can you forge it on a world when it can endure temperatures that are so hot? I mean, that literally you have to stick them in a volcano to forge. Well, these star drives are part of how that's done. And the adventure starts out with this android here. She is one of the followers of this AI god. And the AI god is trying to build up its network to take over all of Numeria. And so the divinity drive is part of this AI. And it crashed with the ship. And slowly it's been raising up in its own self-awareness into a actual, the divinity is the name of the ship that crashed. This actual AI has been contemplating so long that it's becoming a god in its own mind. And so Mayanda, one of these NPCs, comes into this town to cause trouble. And you start out in Torch. Maybe you're adventuring there, maybe you're new to the area, whatever. But Dolga Federate, one of the key individuals in that village, basically begins enlisting your aid because there's a lot of things going on and going wrong. There's a malfunctioning droid. There's some caverns where one of the smiths of the town by the name of Val Bane has lost one of her people that she's very, which was very key. She's an expert that can help with forging of items. So you end up in the Black Hill Caves. You do a little bit of venturing around with the tribe of skulks that's in there. And you make your way to the habitation domes of one of the starship's items. And from there, the adventure begins, because you run into different types of drones and creatures. And there's also Kasatha. And it goes into the Kasatha a little bit. The Kasatha are a star race of multi-armed people. And the Kasatha crashed as test subjects of these people. And so there are robots and undead of them, including a Kasatha Juju zombie called Hetuath. And Hetuath is trying to figure out why his people were destroyed, and you must contemplate and deal with him. You get to go through the science decks and do some xenobiology and exploration. You run into Vegapygmies and some medical drones. And at the end of it all, you get to stop the effort of this android. And so that's the key thing that you're going to be running into here as you deal with the different aspects of exploring this. You got to stop Meanda from getting the divinity drive up and going. Part 1. Part 2, the Lords of Rust. You get to go to Scarwall and adventure to Scarwall. And these are scavengers. They're half-orc scavengers. They're Kellid scavengers. And there's a bunch of gangs that are in Scarwall. And they take the dregs of the trash of these ships and use them as weapons and as to make their way in their fortune. So why are you going there? Well, as the adventure will tell you, for the reason, you're basically trying to get a hold of Hellion, a powerful AI. And Hellion is based in this area, and he's one of the disciples, one of the 3 disciples of the divinity drive. And so you're going to be trying to stop his machinations, and he's the one that sent this android. And he is part of this whole plot to get the web up to allow them to take over and raise up their empire. And so you're going to be dealing with a lot of people. You're going to be dealing with bandits. You're going to actually run into, surprisingly, a paladin ghost. It's one of the paladins of, I believe, Iamade. And his name is Alderonard. And so you're also going to run into some crusaders from Last Wall that are in this area. And then you're going to become scrapworthy. So you come in, you learn information about Scrapwall. And you're going to meet the different tribes. Severeth Slade is one of the key individuals of the Steelhawks that you're going to run into. So the Steelhawks are one of the many gangs that are here that want to recruit you. And then the next ones are the Smilers. And the Smilers have their own little deal. They cut the little smiles into you, kind of like the Joker. So they're an interesting bunch of works. So that's another one. You're actually going to meet a cleric of Bree. That's Devanya Lalani. And Bree is very commonly worshipped in this area as the raised android. You're going to run into the rat folks in this area. So the Smilers, and then you're going to come into some of the rat folks that are in the area, as well as one of the hobgoblin tribes with a necromancer that's in here. So that's another one that you're going to run into. And so there are so many different gangs in here. I could go through all the ones, but needless to say, what you're trying to do is get to this AI. And Hellion's domain is in Last Wall, but you've got to earn some favor to get there. And once you get there, there's a lot of half-orcs and others that follow that are acolytes of Hellion. And there's some advanced gray oozes, some observer robots, half-orcs, and even a Zill sorcerer. So you're going to come up against some nasties of nasties. There are even followers that are Ettins. And finally, you're coming up against Hellion, which... Dun, dun, dun. You remember seeing the cover for Numeria in the original? What did you see? An arachnid robot. Well, guess where his little consciousness is? And you got to fight it. So that's 2. So it's Barrier Peaks on steroids is the best way I can put it. So now you get to the choking tower. The choking tower has to do with a tower that is used with fumes to basically transform people. And you're going to find some more wreckage in the area as you go exploring out. You're going to run into some double agents. And then you're going to run into gearsmen, which gearsmen are some nasty robots that you're going to have to deal with. And slowly you're going to get to the smoke wood in the choking tower. And so there are some great things here. You're going to run into a sentinel of Desna that's in the area, as well as dealing with the choking tower and its many nasties. And Furcus Zaud was the original technomancer who had the choking tower. And he is now using it for his design and experimentation. And so he is experimenting on the many different things, from suffocating spirits to apprentice robot mages, technomancers, to our nasty, nasty, nasty Deadman himself. But there are so many traps and things that you're going to run into. You're going to run into a worm that walks. So you're coming against a lot of things. But you're also going to learn more about who Unity is. And so these are stepping stones to get you to Unity, who is trying to become an evolved god ruling this area. So next, the Valley of the Brain Collectors. And yes, does that look familiar on the monster sides? You're going to have some fun here. Basically, you're going to go into the hives of this area. You're going to run into everything from Migos to Gugs to... what is Isuma? Isuma is one of the aliens, and I should know what they are off the top of my head. Kasathas. You're going to run into another Kasatha. And you're going to deal with the Technic League. And what you have to find out, again, is more clues in the puzzle. And so you're going to deal with a lot of hosts and hives. You're going to deal with chitons. I love it. So we are getting into the Dark Veil kind of techno nasties. And then finally, you're going to find the Nathagals, and there you're going to find some key information on the soul of one of the AIs, which is Cassandali. And Cassandali used to be a follower of our Evolved Drive. But she's going to become a key part of helping the party. Finally, you're going to go to the Palace of Fallen Stars, which is the capital of the Iron Gods. You're going to learn about the city. You're going to learn about the Technic League. You're going to learn about the factions. You're going to deal with a lot of infighting that's going on within the own Technic League itself, because there is an uprising and a coup to take over the Technic League in this whole city, and to also go against the warlord of Numeria. So you're going to be dealing with this as well as making allies as you go along the way. And so this is really important into the politics section of things. And again, you're going to find a lot of neat weapons in here. And I love some of the different monsters and weapons that come out of it. But again, the Technic League is going to be your biggest thing. And you're going to come up against a lot of different chitons in this adventure. So keep that in mind as you come against this. Demodans, chitons, including the Technic League itself. You're going to go into the very heart of the Technic League and try to gain their secrets. Finally, you have to do the uprising against the Divinity Drive. And this is just total madness at this point. You're going against a creature that wants to be a god. And as this picture will show you alone, these are the types of robots you're going to be dealing with. The Divinity Drive is there. This is the sentient being that's called Unity. And Unity is going to use everything at this engineering deck of this ship and possible to try to take over this world. You're going to run into Lashunta, the different Lashuntas, which are from another place. You're going to run into... where Deinicus is. You're going to run into a lot of Geists and other things. You're going to run into dead security guards. So this is a nutty little thing. A pulse pounder. You want to talk about death in armor? Right there. You're going to run into director robots. And you're going to run into Bastion, which is a no-pull golem. Nasty stuff. I mean, this is not going to be your mother's little barrier peaks. This is the holy crap, what are we against type of things. You're going to run into memnivores. You're going to run into Kasatha. You're going to run into all kinds of alien things. You're going to run into Idoozes. You're going to run into demons and gargoyles. But then finally, you're going to run into the master itself, which is the God Mind. And that's where it all is going to go fun. You have to fight the God Mind and take Unity down before Unity becomes a living God. Is it exciting? Oh, heck yeah. Heck yeah. Was it well written? I gotta say, I really, from reading the adventures, I gave them a 4.3 out of 5. I really liked it. Again, I'm not totally wholly sold on the laser things and lightsabers and everything else in D&D or in Pathfinder. But you know what? They don't leave you with a half-cocked plot or story. And there's so many places you can explore that haven't even been touched in this, that there's ship everywhere. And so you really can take this to another level. And mind you, the Dark Veil creatures are the ones fighting these guys. So not only are you dealing with Cthulhu, but you're dealing with tech, and you're dealing with all of this. It is Event Horizon in a Pathfinder level. And so I kind of liked it. I didn't think I would. I really didn't. Is it worth the money to invest? Sure. Is it worth running? I look forward to it one day. It's going to get crazy, and my characters are not going to know what to do. They can turn themselves into, half-tech creatures. But remember this. The chance of a TPK in this is really high. Really, really, really high. I don't care what you make your characters, the stuff they're coming up against is pretty frickin' invincible at points. And so, and the Technic League itself is no little pushover. So keep in mind, as the characters go against this and as they venture here, you want to keep them on the straight-edged razor. Jeez, I can speak. That they could die at any time. It's reality. It can happen. So keep this in mind. And as you run this thing, really prep it out. Give them a reason for coming there. Let them be some of the brightest minds and adventurers that really want to get into the Technic League and understand things more. Give them a great background story. Really spend the time with this one, because it can either be a huge flop where everybody goes, really? Or they go, wow, I never thought this could be so cool. And it's one of those, if you take the time and investment, and you could really put Numeria into anywhere. You can put it into Faerun. You can put it into Greyhawk. You can put it into Eberron. You can dial this up any way you want to do it and use it for any campaign. And the great part about it is the whole plot and premise behind it are just super. The Paizo team who wrote this, big props, guys. I didn't think I'd like it, and you won me over. And I was a huge skeptic. Go back and look at your little threads under Dorian Greywalker, and you will see, or it's maybe under Flynn. Yeah, Flynn Greywalker. You will see, huge skeptic. Huge. But you guys won me over. And I really appreciate that, because that shows me that it was done really well. All right, guys, that's it for my things for this week. I hope you like this path. It's worth the money. You're going to pay some money for it. Get the pawns for it. Get the maps for it. Those are two other add-on items I haven't discussed. You really want to have those, because all the figurines for this aren't out. So you want to get the pawns, the punch-out pawns to use with this. Well worth the money. Get the map folio that has all the maps of the region. Get the other things that are the laminate maps that you can use for the party going in and adventuring places. And get some good, cool metal dice for this one. So, have fun, guys, and we'll talk to you again.